현대 프로파간다는 미국의 대중 여론을
It is a remarkable fact that modern propaganda began with the British,
동조를 얻어내기
who
위하여
established a secret war propaganda bureau in 1914 in order to sway American public opinion and gain sympathy for the Allied cause.
사실이 아닐 수 없다. 이 공작은
It was headed by George Creel, who described it as
묘사하였다. 판매
a
기술의
vast
정확한
enterprise in salesmanship, the world's greatest adventure in advertising.
그의 가장 최우선의 임무는 비록
His immediate job
본토가
was to convince the pacifist American people that a war some 4,000 miles away was worth fighting, even though American soil was not threatened.
안전주의 미국인들에게 설득하는 것이었다. 헐리우드는 8천만 명의
Hollywood held this cause by exploiting a weekly film audience of 80 million with titles such as The Hun Within,
짐승,
The
그리고
Kaiser, The Beast of Burden, and The Claws of the Hun,
위협이
which
바로
all suggested that the German threat was right on American soil.
선전하는 것으로 이 공작에 협조하였다.
The process worked so well that Americans learned to hate German civilians almost as much as the targeted German government. And just 6 months after his re-election, on a stay out of the war pledge, President Woodrow Wilson declared war on Germany.
And a League of Nations.
일주일 후
1 week later, the US set up its own propaganda organization, the Committee on Public Information, which became so successful that it continues to this day as the United States Information Agency.
영국이 평화 상태에서는 프로파간다를 금지하는
While the
동안
British abandoned propaganda in peacetime, the Americans maintained its use under the leadership of Creel Commission psychologist Edward Bernays.
그는 미국의 대중 의견은 반드시 사회 내 소수
who argued that American public opinion must be engineered from above by society's few masters,
주장하였다. 1% 집단,
the 1%,
오합 지졸들을
to control
조종하기.
the rabble.
So Eddie began to formulate.
그의 첫 번째 실험은
His first experiment was to convince American women that smoking was glamorous and liberating, despite common fears that smoking was associated with prostitution.
믿게 만드는 것이었다.
New York held an Easter Day parade.
그는 모델을
He
고용하여
did this by hiring models to march in New York's Easter parade, each holding a lit cigarette and wearing a banner proclaiming it a torch of liberty.
그 실험을 대신했다. 재계는 곧바로
The business world then turned to Bernays to indoctrinate citizens with the capitalist story until the masses willingly adopted the idea that America is a country of big business, by big business, and for big business.
파시즘이란 기업주의라고 불리는
Fascism
것이
should more appropriately be called corporatism, because it is a merger of state and corporate power.
때문이다. 베니토
Benito
무솔리니.
Mussolini.
나치 선전부 장관
Meanwhile, Nazi propaganda minister Joseph Goebbels was openly thanking the British and Americans for their propaganda model
독일 인민이
and put it to
전쟁에
good use
앞다투어
for rallying the
참가하게
German
만든
people to war.
심오하게 활용하였다.
Wollen wir ihn, wenn nötig, totaler und radikaler, als wir ihn uns überhaupt erst vorstellen können.
역사적 자료들을 보면 괴벨이
Historical documents prove that Goebbels ordered stormtroopers to burn down the German Reichstag, which he blamed on the communists.
명령하였다는 것을 증명하고 있다. 이 사건들은
This had the desired effect of frightening the population, who surrendered their civil rights and enabled the Nazis to swiftly transform Germany from republic to fascist state and launch World War II.
하였다.
In 1940, Hitler had conquered France.
3,500만 명이란 목숨.
35 million lives were given up in World War II in patriotic fervor, created by propaganda campaigns.
희생되었다.
Australia marches with Britain, land of plenty, land of untold resources, all placed gladly, willingly at the feet of Mother England.
Look carefully at this man. He's the Emperor of Japan, whose forces have committed the appalling atrocities against British Empire and Chinese troops and civilians, men and women in Hong Kong. These are the swine who bound and bayoneted our helpless soldiers in their hands. If these pictures serve to kindle a flame of vengeance throughout the civilized world, they will have served their purpose. Let the cry be vengeance, bloody vengeance!
미국 대중과 의회는
For the second time, the American public and Congress were overwhelmingly against entering the war in Europe.
Another war, not for me. This time America should keep out, and I know I will. If war breaks out in Europe, I think that this country should heed the advice of its first president and avoid all foreign entanglements. In the event of war in Europe, I think we should stay out of it entirely.
프랭클린 루즈벨트 대통령은
So, President Franklin Roosevelt needed something that could provoke Hitler into declaring war on the US
대중을 위협하여 행동으로
and frighten the public into action.
무엇인가가 필요하였다. 그래서 그는
He did
일본군이
this by deliberately failing to warn his fleet commanders that a surprise Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor was imminent.
그에게 경고는
The
영국,
warnings came to him from the governments of Britain, Australia, and the Soviet Union,
이 관련
and are now a matter of public record.
문건으로 분류되어 있다. 우리 조선은 미국인들에게 위험을 알린
We in Korea were among the first to alert the Americans
우리는 일본
because we know better than anyone what the vicious Japanese are capable
잘
of.
알고 있었기 때문이다.
were slaughtered by Japanese troops.
More power to you, President Roosevelt. The entire country's behind you, thrilled with hope and patriotism.
프로파간다를 이용하여
As if using
자국민의
propaganda to send their pacifist population to war wasn't bad enough.
미국이 어떻게 나치를 멸망시킨
Consider how America repaid its people for defeating the Nazis.
줬는지를 보면 그리 나쁘지만도 않은 것이었다. 종이 클립 작전.
Operation Paperclip.
종이 클립 작전이란
Operation Paperclip was the safe transfer of Nazi scientists and operatives into the CIA. Nazis like Josef Mengele, the infamous Angel of Death, who carried out live experiments on humans in the death camps.
이런 살인
These
전문가들이
death industry pros were given new identities as US citizens and employed in US laboratories to develop a dazzling array of mind control programs for the CIA, as well as new products and ideas for US biochemical warfare expansion.
Ultimately, they discovered LSD. All of that drug stuff.
제너럴 일렉트릭, 듀퐁,
Not only did companies like General Electric, DuPont, Ford, and Bell help with Operation Paperclip,
조지 부시
but so did
대통령과의
Americans
시장이라고
like
했죠.
Prescott Bush, the patriarch of the presidents George Bush.
국립문서고와 의회 도서관에 있는 문서를
Documents
보면
in the National Archives and Library of Congress show that he committed treason continuously between 1924 and 1951.
첫 번째는 나치와
First, by using Jewish slave labor in collusion with the Nazis, and then by bringing those Nazis and their assets into America.
하게 하였다. 조국을 배신한
Despite being a traitor to his country, this Nazi collaborator became a senator, and his family has assumed great power in America.
그러나 이들만이
But they are not the only fascist family to thrive from tyranny against humanity.
아니다. 법원 기록을 살펴보면
Court records show that the Rockefeller's Standard Oil Company was selling more oil to Hitler's war effort than to the Allies. And for this, a federal judge ruled John D. Rockefeller committed treason against the United States.
판시하였다. 반역죄.
Treason,
모든 범죄 중
the most heinous crime of all.
범죄. 제2차 세계대전
Prior to
이전
World War II, this man joined fellow traitor Prescott Bush and the British royal family in sponsoring the eugenics initiatives that gave rise to Hitler's racial hygiene programs.
박차를 가하도록 하였다.
Horrifyingly, today, the Rockefeller family, the UN, and World Health Organization remain at the forefront of administering population programs designed to reduce world populations to more manageable levels. One can only imagine what terrible ideas these monsters have in store for us.